pause for a moment. What's happening now is not new, it's becoming clear. This message didn't arrive to shock you or change your direction. It arrived to confirm what has already been forming quietly inside you. Take a breath. If this video found you today, it's because the fog you've been feeling is thinning. Not through force, not through answers from outside, but through recognition. You may notice that things suddenly feel simpler, not easier, just clearer. Thoughts don't loop the same. Questions lose their urgency. That's how truth reveals itself. It doesn't argue, it doesn't rush, it settles. You don't need to act yet, you don't need to explain anything, you don't need to decide right now. Just notice this shift, because when clarity arrives like this, it means confusion has already done its job, and once the truth becomes clear, you can't unsee it. If this message reached you at the right moment, like the video, and subscribe to stay connected to messages that arrive. When clarity is needed most, confusion doesn't disappear all at once, it loosens. What once felt tangled begins to separate naturally, not because you forced understanding, but because the truth no longer needs to hide. You may notice that certain thoughts no longer pull you in opposite directions, that choices don't feel as heavy, that hesitation fades without a clear reason. This is how clarity works. It doesn't arrive with explanations, it arrives with relief. Nothing dramatic changes on the outside. But internally, you stop negotiating with doubt. The universe doesn't rush this moment. It allows confusion to dissolve only when you're ready to see clearly. And readiness doesn't come from effort. It comes from experience. If things feel quieter in your mind right now, that's not emptiness. That's space being created for truth. Once clarity settles, patterns reveal themselves without effort. Things you once questioned now feel predictable. Reactions make sense. Outcomes no longer surprise you. This isn't hindsight, it's perspective. You begin to see how certain situations repeated themselves, how similar lessons appeared in different forms, how your intuition was noticing long before your mind accepted it. Patterns don't appear to trap you, they appear to show you where understanding was needed. And the moment you can see the pattern clearly, you're no longer inside it. Nothing here is about blame. Nothing is about regret. This recognition exists so you can move forward. With precision instead of confusion. What once felt complicated was simply unseen. Now that the pattern is clear, your next steps don't require force. When the truth becomes obvious, it doesn't demand action, it allows choice. As the truth becomes clearer, your internal signal sharpens. You may notice that your body responds before your thoughts do. Certain situations feel lighter. Others immediately feel unnecessary. This isn't emotional reaction, it's discernment. Your intuition stops, whispering, and starts speaking clearly, not loudly but consistently. You don't need to analyze every feeling. You don't need to question every response. When the internal signal sharpens, confusion no longer competes for attention. What aligns feels calm. What doesn't feels distant. Nothing here requires urgency. Clarity doesn't rush. This signal exists to guide your focus, not control it. It helps you move with awareness instead of hesitation. And the fact that you're noticing this shift means you're already listening correctly. When clarity settles in, it doesn't rush you forward. It stabilizes you. You may notice that decisions feel quieter now, not easier, just cleaner. There's less internal debate, less back and forth. What once required reassurance now feels resolved. You don't need to revisit it. You don't need to test it again. This is how clarity works when it's real. It doesn't excite the mind, it calms it. You begin to move with confidence that doesn't need validation. Your attention goes naturally toward what matters. Distractions lose their pull. Nothing here is dramatic, and that's how you know it's true. When clarity settles like this, it means the truth has already been accepted internally. Now it simply becomes the ground you stand on. From this point on, movement happens without pressure, because you're no longer trying to figure things out. You're acting from understanding. As clarity settles, protection follows naturally, not as barriers, not as warnings, but as discernment. You may notice that certain situations no longer pull at you, that conversations don't drain you the way they used to, that your energy stays intact without effort. This isn't withdrawal, it's precision. Clarity protects by filtering what deserves your attention. You stop engaging where there's nothing to resolve. You stop reacting where there's nothing to prove. Delays begin to feel purposeful. Silence feels informative instead of uncomfortable. Distance feels neutral, not threatening. Nothing is being taken from you. You're simply no longer exposed to what creates unnecessary friction. When clarity becomes protection, you don't need to defend your space. Your awareness does that for you. And if you've felt more composed lately, less reactive, more steady, that's not coincidence. It's the natural effect of seeing things clearly. When clarity becomes consistent, it changes things without announcing itself. You may notice your focus narrowing, not from limitation, but from precision. You invest your energy with intention. You withdraw it without guilt. What once felt important now feels optional. What once demanded explanation now feels self-evident. This isn't detachment. It's discernment in motion. Clarity quietly rearranges priorities. You stop chasing certainty. You stop revisiting decisions that already feel resolved. Your inner world becomes quieter, not emptier. There's more space, more order, more direction. Nothing here feels forced. And that's how you know it's aligned. When clarity works like this, it doesn't push you forward. It removes friction so movement becomes natural. And once that happens, you don't need to convince yourself anymore. When things finally feel clear, there's one subtle risk: overthinking what no longer needs analysis. Clarity doesn't ask to be dissected, it asks to be respected. At this stage, the mind may try to revisit old questions out of habit, to reopen decisions that already feel settled, to seek reassurance where certainty already exists. This isn't intuition, it's familiarity with doubt. Another way clarity gets blurred is through urgency, trying to move too fast, trying to define everything immediately. Clarity works best when allowed to breathe. Nothing here needs to be fixed, nothing needs to be proven, nothing needs to be rushed. The moment you stop questioning what already feels obvious, clarity stabilizes. And when clarity stabilizes, your next steps reveal themselves naturally, without pressure, without confusion. Clarity doesn't impact everyone da mesma forma. It benefits those who are willing to see without resistance, those who don't need dramatic proof, those who trust what becomes obvious. If you're feeling calm instead of rushed, grounded instead of excited, that's a sign clarity is working for you. This phase isn't about winning or losing. It's about alignment. You stop comparing your pace to others. You stop measuring progress through noise. You recognize that clarity is personal and timing is precise. Some people will keep searching, others will keep questioning. Those who benefit most are the ones who recognize clarity when it arrives and don't argue with it. If things feel simpler now, it's not because life got smaller, it's because your focus became sharper. When clarity benefits you, it doesn't inflate the ego, it strengthens direction. When clarity is real, it changes how you're perceived. Not because you assert yourself more, but because you need to explain less. Your decisions sound final without being rigid. Your presence feels grounded without being distant. People sense your certainty before you speak. This is quiet authority. You're no longer negotiating internally, so there's nothing external to defend. Situations resolve with fewer words. Boundaries are understood without confrontation. Your direction feels obvious, even to others. This kind of authority doesn't come from control. It comes from coherence. When what you think, feel, and do are aligned, clarity becomes visible. And once that happens, you don't need to prove you know what you're doing. You simply move, and the world adjusts. Clarity doesn't just change what you see, it changes how you stand in the world. Your posture becomes steady, not guarded, not defensive. You explain less because you understand more. You react less because nothing feels urgent to prove. This isn't withdrawal, it's presence. When clarity shapes your posture, your energy stops adjusting to every external signal. You remain open, but not exposed. calm, but not passive. You don't chase alignment anymore. You move from it. This posture shifts interactions naturally. Conversations become simpler. Decisions carry less weight. Nothing here is forced. Nothing is rehearsed. It's the quiet confidence that comes from seeing things clearly and trusting what you see. When clarity creates this posture, movement stops feeling heavy. Clarity isn't fragile, but it does require consistency. What's clear now stays clear when you honor it in small ways, in choices you don't announce, in boundaries you don't explain, in decisions you don't revisit. The most common disruption at this stage isn't confusion returning, it's inconsistency, acting against what you already know, ignoring your own recognition for comfort or habit, overriding clarity to avoid temporary discomfort. Clarity doesn't demand perfection, it asks for integrity. When your actions stay aligned with what you've understood, stability remains intact. When they don't, friction quietly returns. Nothing here requires effort. It requires honesty with yourself. If you move at the pace clarity sets, not faster, not slower, what's aligned doesn't slip away. It settles in. And when clarity is sustained like this, the next phase doesn't need to be chased. It arrives. At this point, nothing needs to be added. What becomes clear now isn't loud, it's certain. You stop, searching for signs because recognition has already happened. You stop questioning because the answer no longer shifts. You feel settled, not because everything is finished, but because the direction is. This is how truth reveals itself when it's real. It doesn't push, it doesn't rush, it stays. If something still feels unfinished, it's only because it's still organizing itself. Clarity doesn't end processes, it prepares them. And if you're feeling more grounded than emotional right now, more steady than reactive, that's the confirmation. The truth didn't arrive today. Today is simply when you stopped doubting it. If this message brought clarity, like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay connected to messages that arrive at the right moment. And comment clear if you stayed until the end. It helps the channel and shows who recognized this message when it appeared. What's clear now will guide what comes next.